Switch over my push to talk.
Unfortunately, I'll be featuring in this, so don't mock me.
The rest of us will shut up.
Oops.
So what we do, Charles, is
Okay.
Pete generally takes us. Last week he took us through a track tour, turn by turn, and we just jumped in and asked questions. It's fine. I think it's fine. I think it's part of the learning experience and answering those questions.
Yeah.
I'm recording it for us, not for anyone else, if I'm honest. So I can make it available just to watch again. That's the main purpose of recording it. So I'll put it on the YouTube. If it's not something we can necessarily make a video out of, I will keep it as unlisted, but share the link so we can at least access it and watch it again for the benefit of RaceToLearn. It's not intended to generate views.
And also be aware, I am streaming, again, mostly for just being able to show some folks what the Snail Racing RaceToLearn sessions are about. There are some that I think would be a really excellent candidate for it. I'd like to be able to show them. Yeah, that's what you're missing out on, right? This is the community you're missing out on. But be aware that I am live streaming. I did just cut over the stream again just to make sure that we're starting fresh from this point forward. Also, I do have VRS running, and on my stream I do have live telemetry. So you can either watch the VOD along with whatever recording that you folks do, or you can take a look at VRS and kind of match that up with your replay. And get a feel for what kind of inputs I'm providing.
Okay. Good.
So whenever we'd like to start, just let me know.
I think I'm not sure. Sorry, D jumped in. D wasn't in last week. D, what we normally, and Jerome, I think as well, what we did last week is we all jumped into Pete's car and he talked us through the track. So I don't know if you guys want to do that. It's
just make sure you're live.
Yeah.
Click the fast forward button. Make sure you're live. Cockpit view, and that's what we do. And to get in his car, you use the helmet on the to select him.
The track temperature is increasing. It's now 72 Fahrenheit.
Sounds good.
I think we can pause crew chief here.
Okay, I think we're good to go. Unless anyone else says no.
Are we fine? Jerome says he's fine. He doesn't have a mic, but he can hear us. So we're good to go.
Okay, good deal. So to get started, this layout of this track, I mentioned a little bit earlier, is new to me. So I'm used to the the grand, full track layout where you go past a oak tree and all that. So I've got fresh in my mind some things that I struggled with and things that I focused on to figure out how to find the correct line, how to get the car around. So we will be talking through those. The biggest takeaway that I've had from getting up to speed today is this track is very much about don't panic. Right? It looks really unforgiving, and it can be if you lose your cool when things go a little bit wrong. And we'll talk through some areas where I got into trouble. And things that I did right and wrong that resulted in either off track or just scrubbing some speed and then going about my business. The other big thing with this track, and I'm sure everyone noticed, I heard the word roller coaster. We've got corners actually called roller coaster. That can be the biggest liability or your biggest asset. Like we talked about last week with Zandvoort, if you're in a pack of 2 or 3 cars and you're thinking about how you can use the camber, you're thinking about how you can use the elevation changes to maximize your grip or maximize your line, and the other folks in your pack are not, chances are more often than not, you're going to come out ahead by default, regardless of your pace, just by paying more attention to that track and how you can use it to your advantage. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. I'll bring it on track. We'll take a really slow walkthrough, and I'll just talk about the things that I'm thinking about so far. Again, some of this is a little bit new to me today. I put in an hour and some change earlier just to get a feel for it, and I'll probably have more bits as I do more through the week. But we'll talk about what I've been seeing so far, thinking and feeling so far. So I'll go ahead and head out here. This is the glorious pit exit, in case anyone was unfamiliar. To exit, just hit the gas and exit. Kidding. Okay, so coming up for braking zone here, I found that there's a pretty big difference in cold versus warm tires on braking zone. The first couple laps, due to the way that you'll see ahead of me, the track starts to go uphill a little bit and then evens out just as you're turning in. So what's going to happen there is as we transition from that uphill to the flat, the car's going to get light, right? So it's basically the same thing as like starting to go over a downhill crest. The car wants to keep going forward, which is in a slightly uphill direction, but the track has fallen away. So that difference in where the car wants to go and where the track goes results in a change in available traction. In this case, or less traction. So on cold tires, they're particularly sensitive to asking a lot of them for, kind of pushing them sideways. So we really want to get more of the braking done earlier. So we're not asking for as much cornering traction once we start to load the car up and really have it, leaning to the side as we're getting through the corner. We want to promote a little less of that. So for the first couple laps, I'm looking more at this 3 marker over on the left here. I'm probably going to start braking, for me, right about at that 3 marker or just after that 3 marker when I'm on cold tires. And then as I get more comfortable, as the tires come up to temperature and I start to have more confidence that they're properly conditioned and ready to go, I'll start braking more towards that 2 marker. And that's a personal thing. Your braking points may vary, but probably right around here is very safe. Like just before this 3, you'll have plenty of time, and especially in traffic, right? This is a big accordion section, so even people that are very, very fast and they're really nailing it late braking on that 2 marker, you might still have to brake way back here if there's a big line, because everybody behind the person who's at the 2 marker has to start braking sooner and sooner and sooner.
Pete, sorry, can I just ask a question?
Mhm.
Where exactly in your car is your braking marker? Because if Larry and I do a session together and he tells me the braking point is at marker 3,
Sure.
he might be braking when his nose is next to number 3, but I might be braking when my wheel is next to number
Sure.
3. And believe it or not, for me, that makes a difference.
It does.
So,
yeah.
what is your marker? Is it your wheel? Is it your nose? Is it the mirror? Or is it as soon as marker 3 is on your left screen or on your left-hand side?
Okay, so I'm in VR, which is automatically kind of changes some things, right? As far as exactly where it is in relation to me.
Okay, fair enough.
The bigger overarching answer is it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Wherever it is for you, so long as that's consistent for you, and you've got a really solid idea of what does at the 3 mean. For me, I'm generally thinking about when my front wing or front tires are going across it. But ultimately, everyone's going to have most likely a slightly different braking point, right?
Yes.
So it's not a big deal if the 3 to me meant when it's coming out of the when it's falling out of my peripheral vision, which would be maybe a half car before I actually get there. All that's going to mean is I'm going to think, okay, I need to brake a half car length after the 3. Right?
Yes.
Because where I'm seeing it is just slightly different. And it may be for you where the nose of the car makes sense to be braking just, a half car or car length before the 3, and that's fine. The important part is you've got a static relative reference that you can adjust forward or backwards in relation to find the exact sweet spot that works for you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
So, okay. All right. So coming up about here is about the latest that I generally want to start braking. And in addition to looking at the 2 marker, I'm looking at, if I look to the side, you can see this is where the track is basically fully flat. It's just before we're going to start going up this hill, right? So we talked about this a little bit at Zandvoort, where you get more traction when you're going over compressions, which means transitioning from a flat to a hill, or even from a downhill to a flat. It's gonna push down on the front of the car, which gives you more available traction on those front tires that you can use for whatever you would like. So you can be able to stop a little bit more efficiently, you can turn in a little bit more efficiently, or when the rears go over that compression, you can even accelerate a little bit more efficiently. So in this case, we're going to use it to start our braking as well as we can. But if we go beyond this, we don't have that compression anymore, right? Because what's going to happen after you start going up the hill? Initially, the car's going to squish, right? And then it's going to kind of raise back up again once it's once it's changed its direction of travel to be going up the hill, it's no longer, trying to go as if it were a flat track anymore. It's made that transition. There's no more pushing on the front of the car, right? So we want to take advantage of that initial squish when we transition to the uphill. So I'll start braking here. What I'm looking for here is, you see the tire barriers at about 2 o'clock position to my car. I know that the end of this inside curb is going to end right about before where those tire barriers come, okay? So I'm looking for a really, really late apex that's going to allow me to begin departing the curb, roundabouts just before that tire barrier, a little bit before it. So that's kind of the same way at Zandvoort we talked about with T5, right? That big downhill sweeping, right? Where you can't see the apex, but you've got those green lights you can look at to orient yourself a little bit. That's what these tire barriers can be for you while you're getting started, is when you figure out where about the actual apex is, which again is going to be the very end of the curb on the right here, you can start to use that to figure out, am I coming in too hot? Which means I'm going to need to brake harder in a straight line for longer before I turn in, or have I left a little bit on the table and I can actually ease off the brake a little bit and let myself carry a little bit more speed. And that also talks to another point here. This is one of those don't panic corners. If you are coming in too hot, don't try to make the corner at the same time that you normally would, right? It's okay. Just keep the wheel straight. Use all of your available traction to slow the car down a little bit more. If you stay cool, you'll be able to scrub that extra speed and just turn in a little bit later and kind of stop the bleeding from how much pace you lose, because you'll be able to hit the exit at a similar exit speed. You will just have lost time because you took so much more time. You covered so much more ground, rather, getting around the corner, but you won't lose the pack on the exit if you're patient about slowing the car down enough before you turn in. If you turn in too soon, you're going off the end. So if you're carrying too much speed and you panic and you crank the wheel to the right, you're going to be spinning off the track and get a real good look at where you just came from. So, okay, let's go ahead and move up here. So I'm braking hard here, and I'm starting to turn in, right about where the 1 is. And I'm going to stay away from this curb because we talked about I want to have a really late apex, right? And again, I've got this nice little camber. If you look right next to the curb, it's more subtle than it was at Zandvoort, but it's here, right? I'm trying to get the car, ideally, however I need to get it there. So my right tire is hooked into this camber just to the left of this curb at the end of the curb. Whatever I need to do to hit this point, I'm going to do it. If it means I have to slow down more because I came in too hot, if it means I need to push the car out a little bit more because I didn't come in fast enough or I turned in too early, whatever adjustment I have to do, this is the critical point to hit in order for me to hit the exit that I want. So we'll talk about the exit. So for this one, there's no point, and in fact, it's detrimental to allow the car to swing all the way to the left, because what we're looking for our exit is actually this corner and the next corner are all one corner. What I want to see happen here for the exit of this one is that it sets me up to be able to stay very tight to the next curb on the right that we're going to see here. So the most that ends up being typically is coming out where I've got the seam in the asphalt here. I'm generally trying to keep my car roughly just to the left of it. If it goes a little bit more or less, again, that's just a reference point that lets me know in advance that I've either drifted out a little bit further or a little bit less than I'm used to, and I can start making an adjustment to make sure that I'm able to stay tight for this next bit of the corner. Okay. So this is the next bit I was talking about. For me, this is when I'm turning in for T1, this is what's on my mind. This is what I'm thinking about, is I want to end up with the car here at maximum velocity. Every decision I'm making to get through T1, from my braking point to my turn-in point to how close I'm going to get to that first curb and when, every single one of those decisions is how do I get right here, right now, with the maximum speed. Okay? And then why do I want to be all the way on the right? Because the geometric ideal line puts me way over on the left, right? Why do I want to be on the right here? That doesn't make any sense. It's because I'm thinking ahead to the next corner, which we'll go and take a look at. And you can see there's even worn grass here, because this is how far over people are trying to get, because they want to open up this left corner. And when I say left corner, what I really mean is left corners, plural. So these next two are, again, one sweeping left-hand corner. So again, going back to Zandvoort, and I apologize if anybody wasn't here for this because you're missing the context. But that going from T5 all the way around, whatever those, 4 right-hand turns in a row until you get to that horseshoe I talked about, my wheel's never straight, right? It's just different degrees of turning right. The same thing happens here, but I'm coming in, I'm taking a really nice, gentle tip into the left, and then I'm thinking about the next corner where it's going to be just tightening up the same left corner that I'm already in. I'm never straightening the wheel. Okay, so this first left almost doesn't exist to me. This first exit I don't care about. It's part of the scenery, right? There's no value to me in getting too close to it. So, and I'll explain why. Because I want to carry as much speed as possible to be able to tip the car in for the next, I'll say, section of this corner, which is treated as a separate corner on the track map, but I treat it as one. And for that, all I care about is being able to stay, far enough left where I'm left of the seam in the asphalt, maybe a little bit closer, depending on how the tires are doing. And that's so I can make use of some of the camber that you see ahead of me to carry a little bit more speed before we start turning in for the real part of this. So at speed, my wheel's straight right now, but at speed, I'm going to have a little bit of left input at this point, and I'm going to hold that left input, and at speed, the car's going to kind of naturally push itself out, and I'm going to start braking right about here or a little bit earlier, and I'm not thinking about slowing the car down. I'm thinking about trying to get the car to rotate for a late apex on the next left. So I am going to take off a little bit of speed. I'm braking maybe 20-30% at this point, and I will I won't quite put the wheel straight, but I will unwind it just a little bit so I can brake a little bit harder without upsetting the car. And as soon as I see the fronts are getting pretty close to the side of the track here, I'm already looking. If you can, I don't know how well that's going to come through, but if you can see the tree line, if you think about a very late apex on this next left, and you can see there's a couple of that grove of trees. There's like a little dip where there's 2 smaller trees in the middle of that line of trees. That's kind of my focus point. Like, I know from here at this point, if I draw a straight line to where I want to begin departing from the curb, it's pretty much going to go right about where those trees are from my eyeballs, right? So that's what I'm thinking of for how much braking I'm going to add here. At this point, I'm not slowing the car down anymore. I'm just trying to get it rotated so that it will play nice and come close to this curb for a very late apex. And you can even take a good chunk of this curb, as long as you don't get like more than this much or so. And I'm really trying to keep it tight towards the end of the curb. And the car will naturally bring itself out for exit here. And my exit point is pretty far down this curb here. Okay. And then this next one coming up, this is another interesting one where we've got a couple of corners that are best treated as a single corner. So this left coming up is again a big illustration in the difference between what is the ideal geometric line and what is the ideal racing line. So we'll start with the exit, as I am inclined to do. The exit for this left that's coming up is setting up for a couple of I almost treat it like a right-left kink that is effectively a straight. Excuse me. After I make this left, the second I get on the throttle, I don't intend to lift again until we get to the end of the next straight. So I'm extending the straight. That's what I'm thinking about when I'm figuring out where am I going to start braking and turning in for this left. I'm thinking about how can I arrange it such that once I get on the throttle for the exit of this left, I'm not getting off again until we get down that straight. So what does that look like? The braking point here is a little bit, there isn't a lot of references, right? So there's a little bit of, you can see these orange lines. They're kind of hard to see at speed.
Oh yeah.
But it's one of a few references. You can also see there's permanent marring on the track just ahead of where I'm at. And more importantly, I'm just going to go back a little bit. For me, because what I actually end up using is there's a small hill that you just start going up right about now, right? It actually transitions. Let me see if I can go back a little more and not get flagged. Okay. So you can see it's starting, the elevation changes just a little bit right about here. And this is when I know I can really hit the brakes hard and again get a little bit extra braking because it's making a slight transition to a little bit more of a grade, which again we talked about pushes down on the front of the car, which gives you a little bit more grip to play with. And I'm going to use that grip in this case for slowing the car. So it's a quick, hard jab on the brakes, and then you can see the elevation starts to taper off again right about here. If you look at the white line is the easiest way to see it. For me, I'm in VIR, so I get that depth. But if you look at the white line, you can kind of see how it's curving down. About a car length ahead of me, it's going to start curving down. I want to have the car rotated before that happens. Because my traction's going to fall off a little bit and the car is going to push a little bit. So I'm going to use that to my advantage so that I can add a little bit more angle than I normally would. So I'm coming in sharper like this because I know the car is going to push. I know the rear end's going to get light and it's going to oversteer just a little bit, which means I can come into this a little bit earlier and have the car pointed the correct way. Whereas if it was completely flat, I would, I'd be exiting, this would need to be a really late exit. I'd be pushed all the way to the outside of the track if it was completely flat. Since it's a little bit downhill and there's a little bit of camber at the apex coming up here, I know that I can basically kind of throw it in here, right, and still keep the car pretty tight. So at this point, hard on the brakes, and now I'm starting to trail right about here because we're going to transition into this camber. So I know that the track's going to help me make the corner at this point. So it's crucially important that I'm looking at this apex curve on the left, and I'm trying to use as much of that camber as I possibly can. Now, if I get this wrong, I'm much more inclined to cut this curb really hard than I am to allow it to go wide. So if I don't like what's happening, I'm gonna get pretty violent with moving the car to the left here, as opposed to letting it go wide. That's one of those things where if you've got a plan ahead of time and you're keeping your head in a pack of traffic and they kind of freak out, a lot of people will go off wide right here and just, head off into the Shadowland if they don't like their speed. Whereas if you're thinking a couple corners ahead and that you want to be full throttle and stay full throttle once you get out of this, no matter what happens, even if there's mistakes, you want to be able to be full throttle through those next few rights, and you adjust your strategy accordingly to choose the correct tactic, you're going to come out on top. Okay, so I'm going to get really, really tight here. Here you can really see that camber in the corner. That's really going to help you get around. And now I'm looking at this seam in the road again. I want to stay to the left of this. Again, the geometric ideal would put me way over on the right, like 2-3 car widths to the right. But if I do that, then the next right corner is going to be too sharp. I'm not going to be able to keep the throttle down. I'm going to have to lift, and there's a huge straight after it. So if I lift and my exit speed is even 1 or 2 kilometers an hour slower, that's going to be several tenths by the time we get to the end of that straight. So I would much rather compromise this exit, which means my ideal exit is halfway through the track. It's not the geometric. I'd much rather do that and have a better exit speed through this whole next set of corners than to have, an absolutely killer left-hand corner here and then, womp womp trying to make the next right. So here I'm going to get on the throttle really hard right now. And I'm going to try to go up to second if I can when the tires are warm. On cold tires, you may have to lift slightly to get the car to turn in here. On warm tires, say lap 3 or 4 for sure, you should be able to hold this all in one continuous motion and keep your throttle down. So I'm going from this left. I should back up a little bit more. From this left. Oops. It's not playing well. I'm transitioning directly from the left to the right. My wheel's never straight again. Okay? And now what I'm looking for here is I want the car to drift all the way to the left because I want to open up the next right hand. So again, this is two rights that I treat as a single corner. It's a single double apex corner for me. And at speed, when we do the at speed lamp, pay attention to my wheel input. It basically never changes. Once I turn in, I've got more or less the same amount of steering input through this whole section. Okay, so again, I'm looking at this billboards ahead just to see how I'm doing, make sure that I'm going to be happy with what happens when we get towards the outside of the track here. And I'm trying to get the wheels pretty close to the outside of this curb, and at this point, my attention is fully focused on the next right apex, right? Because I want to set it up so that, again, I'm full throttle, I've got pretty constant steering input, but I may need to make some small adjustments to make sure that I'm able to continue at full throttle and hold tight to this next right apex. And it's really deceptive at first. The first few times you try this, it feels like it's not going to work. But again, we've got the camber of the track that's going to be our best friend here. So it's going to feel like you're going to go wide while you're maintaining the same steering angle and going for a late apex on this right. And you're going to have the same steering angle and the car's going to be like, it's understeering, this isn't good, oh no. And then it's going to drop into this apex and suddenly it's going to come around and tighten up. And you'll be able to actually flip this corner. Okay, so now we're into our full straight. These curves are a lie. They do not exist. This is a straight. My wheel will be perfectly straight through this entire section, of course, or as straight as I can possibly make. So don't think about how do I get through those corners. Think about how do I make that be a straight line. Okay. And then coming up here, pretty straightforward. This is the new section for me that took me a while to figure out. I'm still playing with it, so don't have like deep insight here. But I'm looking at, for lining up, I'm looking at that far left safety barrier for sighting in where the curb's going to come in. Right, so I'm kind of laser focused on that because the track's meandering around a little bit, twisting, turning, even though I'm going in a straight line. So that leftmost orange safety barrier that's blocking the road, that's my guiding light for getting lined up to be able to brake hard and straight. So my braking point, I'm still playing with it a little bit. I'm starting to look at just before this kink, somewhere between this kink and that this discolored grass. That's just to my left now. It's going to be a little bit before this. I'm not quite sure exactly what ideal is. And as we've discussed a few times, my ideal probably isn't going to be the same as yours. And that's okay. Just make use of these same references to figure out where your happy place is. Mine might end up being really close to right at that orange dirt. Yours might be back here or even further back. And that's okay. Okay, so what I'm thinking about coming up for this next right, again, I want to use the unique feature of the elevation and camber of the track to my advantage. If you're thinking about it and someone ahead of you or trying to make a dive on you is not, they're going to show you that this actually makes a really nice jump if you take it too fast. So to that end, this first part of the curb, I don't care about. It doesn't exist to me. I have no purpose for it, right? Because if I come out mid-track, it's going to feel like I'm understeering a little bit because of how much speed I want to take through. As we start going uphill, again, what we talked about, when we're making that transition, now the car is getting pushed down on the front. And this time, instead of using it for stopping, I'm going to use it for extra traction, for turn-in. So I'm going to be right about where this road seam is until we get close to the very top of this hill. And then I'm actually going to be apexing pretty late up here. And I'm going to be carrying enough speed. And this is what I'm really thinking about when I'm trying to figure out what's my right line to go up that hill. What I'm thinking about is how can I get it so the car is moving so fast that I don't have an option but for the car to drift all the way out, even to the outside of this white line. This is not an off track here. So I'm thinking about how do I extend that uphill right in such a way that I can have so much velocity that this is where I have to end up and in this case, the geometric ideal exit. Okay, going up the hill, these curbs, I've been running 3 SPO I found is good. I tried 5 and even 4, and I would get 0 X's occasionally from hitting these curbs. But at 3 SPO, the car's sitting high enough where you can treat these pretty roughly and have it work out okay and not really upset the car. You just have to stay off this little, right here is as far as you want to go. You want to stay off that little textured bit because I found it can make the way the differential works in this car, it can make that left rear unsettle a little bit, and you won't be able to accelerate as hard as you otherwise would. But again, I'm thinking straight line. At this point, I'm not concerned about this left apex anymore. I'm looking ahead, even beyond the right. The next thing I'm looking at, the next exit I care about, is making sure that I'm set up as ideally as I can to be able to tip in for that left up on the top of the hill and have the car be as tight as possible while using as little steering input as possible and upsetting the car as little as possible. So I know in order to do that, I'm going to need to be as far right for the exit of this upcoming right-hander as possible. So here, I'm going to be getting up to 3rd. It's going to be in that weird spot between 3rd and 4th in some conditions. I think either one's fine. I've been preferring to keep it in 3rd. You may like otherwise. Anyway, my guide here is when we start turning in, I'm going to want to be in 3rd. But for exit of this corner, again, my ideal exit is the one that sets me up to carry as much speed as possible into the next lap, which means I don't want to drift out at all because this is going to be coming up very quickly. So on the exit of this right, I really want to have my right wheels even scaring the grass. That's how far I want to get. Now this one, again, thinking about using the track to our advantage. You're going to be going over a hill at the top of the crest. So we can use that to our advantage by understanding that we can actually use a little bit more steering angle and know that the car is going to drift slightly wide because like the opposite of when we start going up a hill and the car's getting pushed, when we're going over a hill, it's like the car's getting picked up by the hand of God, right? And your wheels are getting really light. So somebody who doesn't understand this, they're coming in, they're going to dive on you. They're going to go, be able to give you a detailed report about these outbuildings up here over the hill. But us, having thought about this in advance, way back here, we're going to start turning in, if not even a little bit earlier. We're going to turn in what feels like too much and let off the throttle in 3rd gear, which is going to bring the front of the car forward. Another thing I should mention is when I'm lining up for this corner, and you should see it in the telemetry, the order in which I do things matters. So when you let off the throttle, it has the same effect as, again, going up a hill, right? So you're letting off the throttle, the car wants to dig into the ground, but the ground doesn't want you to dig into it, right? Which means the ground is going to push back up against the car, which means you're going to have more pressure on the front tires, which means you're going to be able to do something with the forces that are present when you make that transition. So what I want to do, way back there, when I start turning in, I'm going to turn in first and then let off the throttle. So when the car comes forward, I've already got a little bit of steering input here, and when it squishes down on the front tires, it's going to cause just a little bit more turn-in because it's going to go whichever way the wheels are turning at the instant that the weight transfers to the front. Okay, so here, again, we can use a lot of this curb. I found any more than this has upset the car. I did not like what happened, so I stay right about here. And I'm thinking about straight lining all the way until we get up to the scary hog pen, which is just before the roller coasters. So I want the wheel as straight as I can here. I'm thinking about getting to 4th immediately. You should be at the very tippy top of 3rd as you're coming off the exit of this corner and be able to go to 4th almost immediately. And then this will just be kind of practice and trust in the car that as this curb comes up, if you're going in more or less a straight line from the exit of that left that we just took, and you're more or less going in a straight line for the to be able to rest your right tires, again avoiding this textured bit on the curb, you're going to be able to make the corner in 4th flat out. And it just takes practice and confidence, but I promise you it can be done. When I'm thinking about here, again, exit-wise for this first corner, I'm thinking about turning this into one smooth, very, very gentle corner. I want to straighten this out as much as possible, so I'm not going to let the car drift out to the left. I'm going to be listening to my tires. and I want to treat them as nicely as I possibly can in this corner. So that's my guide for how far out do I let the car go, is how much are the tires complaining. The first couple laps, I'm probably going to end up more coming out a little bit towards getting on the other side of the seam in the road. When the tires are really warm, I might actually end up on the right side of the seam because the tires have more grip to offer without complaining about it. But whatever I do, I'm trying to set up for this, where I can, from my hood latch, drawing a line between that and the apex of this right-hander coming up and the left-hander ahead of that. I want to be a stick straight line, which means that I can hold the steering wheel straight. Yeah. And you can cut this a fair bit. There is an off track here if you go too far over, but that's okay. And then this loop, this threw me way off. This is for decoration, basically, in this layout. It's meaningless. Don't let it scare you, but it can be used as a reference, right? So this little looping white track boundary thing does not apply to this layout. This is not an off track or anything here, but I can use it to take a look at lining up the left wheels of my car to be just inside where this loop is coming out from the track, right? Or even on it, right? So right about here, I know this is my early warning. And I imagine we'll be in traffic too. I haven't run this in traffic yet, but I imagine this will be the early warning because the apex coming up is blind. The braking point is blind at this point. You don't really know where you are. You can use this to establish what it looks and feels like when you do a lap that you're comfortable with, and then use that as a reference to figure out how far off am I, either from the inside of this loop or is the car straight at this point? And if not, I pretty much know what I've got to do ahead of time before I get over this hill and things go all willy-nilly at me. Okay, so coming up here, again, we're going to be talking about the difference between the geometric ideal line and the actual racing line. So this right that's coming up here, you're going to be tempted to take it from wide left and come in and hit the apex and let the car drift all the way out to the left again. That's totally a natural feeling, and it's incorrect. So what we're going to want to do here is hold it very tight, right? Because this right doesn't matter. This right is just in the way of getting a good launch into the left that immediately follows it. So we'll keep that in mind as we're going through here. The braking point that I'm looking for, I'm still dialing this in a little bit. I think the safe braking point is using this curb on the left of the track here. I think the ideal braking line is probably about a car length after that curb. I'm still figuring that out when you've got warm tires. I did manage to send myself off a couple times figuring that one out. But I think the safe line, excuse me, I think the safe braking point is a car length or two before this curb. We'll give you some time to work out getting that ideal line where you're holding really, really tight to the curb for this next right. This is kind of similar to that Zandvoort T1, where you can turn in a little earlier than you think, and you can hold it a little later than you think because there's camber there, and it's way more important to have a favorable exit into the ensuing left where you can open it up, and once you get to full throttle, you don't want to have to lift again. Okay, racecraft will be interesting in this one. This is the spot of a lot of excitement with the full course. I'm not quite sure how it's going to work with this version, but I will say on the full course, both the inside and outside lines are viable because, as we discussed, what really matters on coming through this complex is track position at the exit of the next corner. So if you can maintain overlap on someone who's attacking you here on the right, and you can maintain that overlap before you tip into the left, the following left, you're going to be in pretty good shape to offer a strong challenge, at least coming down the straight. And even if you're side by side coming out of the next left, and we'll look at that a little bit more as we get there, even if you've got a little bit of overlap and you let them go, you pedal a little bit just to let them go, there's a huge straight after, and you're going to eat their lunch. So this is a good place to practice the inside and the outside lines and staying to one half of the track. You want to do that before you're in a 2-3 wide, heated situation for 3 consecutive corners. You don't want that to be the first time that you've ever tried to stick to one side of the track here. A little bit of practice here will go really long. Okay, so I'm going to be braking here, maybe a little earlier cold tires, maybe a little later on warm tires, and I'm braking really, really hard, and I'm looking at, as the hill's going to fall off, again, I want to move my wheel to the right a little bit before we get to right here, the hill's starting to transition to the downhill, right? And I'm sighting in, I'm looking at the very end of this curve on the right. The beginning is, I don't want to hit it, but that's not the important part. What I really want to make sure is that my car is very tight on the exit of this curve. So again, we've got camber that's going to help us out here. This is a second gear corner. Bottom of second. If you're in really heated traffic, sometimes you're going to go down to first. It'll be in that weird first-second boundary. But in good clean air, when you're not being challenged, when there's nothing hinky going on, this should be second gear. And again, you're going to see people who want to end up out here at the exit. That's bad. You want to be way over here when you're exiting. And the reason is, if you look ahead, what's happening on the next 2 corners, right? You're going to have basically a straight where you're able to stay full throttle all the way through the next 2-3 lefts even, whereas somebody who's way over on your left at this point, 2-3 wide, they're going to have to slam on the brakes coming down this hill, and you're just going to sail by them on the outside. So the line is much, much more important than anything else here. Okay, so here we're going to be in second. I'm going to be flat out from basically through apex, and I'm going to be sighting in. This ends up being pretty geometric, so I'm looking for that, all the way from the outside, all the way to the inside, stay full throttle, hard. And I'm looking to kind of get close to kissing the edge of the end of this curve. That's my target point for where I want to be for the next turn in. Okay, this one, everybody's favorite. This is going to be the corner where you're either you're probably going to hate it to start, and then if it clicks, it's going to be one of your favorite corners. I've heard that story so many times, and it's certainly the case for me. It's so frustrating until it clicks, and then it's like riding a bike, and you're like, why was this hard, right? But until then, it's kind of a mystery. So let's see if we can demystify it. So again, this is one where I'm thinking 2-3 corners ahead, and that's going to inform my whole approach, even starting back here. So the most important part of this corner is the straight 2 corners later, right? So with that in mind, this left-hand bit basically doesn't exist for me. I don't care about it. I'm using it to open up my entry to the next couple lefts. I don't care about the exit I don't care about getting a perfect, exit speed out of that left. I want to have the line that lets me stay full throttle to the next 2 rights. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn in a little bit later than seems like you should, right? Because you can see this apex curve looks like I should already be, halfway across the track if I wanted to hold it tight around that whole curve. But I don't. What I want is to be able to have an absolutely rip and exit for this next right. So I'm going to come in a little bit later, and I'm going to aim. I know it's going to go downhill. I know the track's going to keep moving a little bit to the left, so I'm going to be aiming to really clip hard and have my wheel pretty straight here. So as soon as I know that I'm clear of the grass and nothing strange is going to happen, I want to be able to brake, give it a good squirt of the brakes here, and I'm sighting forward into this right curb ahead, and my only concern really is don't hit it too hard because it will upset the car, but I want to get pretty close to it. Whatever I have to do to keep my wheel speed up through this corner is what I'm going to do. If I have to brake a little bit more in order to not clip this corner too hard or not go too wide, that's okay. I want this line to be as perfect as I can. This is going to be a 4th gear, kind of crazy downhill. So I'm looking at, again, my only concern is getting as close as I can to this without hitting this curb. And the reason that I want to get close to this as I can without hitting the curb is I don't want to upset it. It's not important that it's not even so important that I'm close to the curb here as it is that getting close enables me to stay full throttle and cover the least amount of track as possible for this huge straight that's coming after. A 10th here on exit is, or rather, a few kilometers per hour here is going to be a 10th before you even hit the pit stop, and can be 3-4 tenths by the time that you're at the end of the straight. So again, keeping my eyes on this whole time, since I started turning in for that left, this corner doesn't matter to me. The next corner doesn't matter to me. What I care about is the straight. And that's what I'm keeping in mind the whole time around this is, okay, how do I minimize wheel scrub and maximize wheel speed for this straight? And to that end, most of the time it's not worth tracking all the way out here. It's just covering extra track for no reason. If the car is going to hold tight here and the tires aren't complaining, great. That means I'm not losing speed and I can cover less track, so we'll hold it as tight as we can. It could be that you're in a strange situation where you've got to go all the way out, or the front tires are going to start complaining, which means you're slowing down, which is bad, in which case, yep, I'll lift a little bit because I don't want the tires to scrub. I want to maintain my speed. I'd rather cover a little more distance if I have to, if that means that because of the length of the straight up here, it's better to lose half a tenth in covering more distance because it takes more time to cover more track, but have that higher wheel speed on the exit here. I'm going to make that up because we're going to be, full throttle wheel basically straight for, the next 15, 20 seconds. I'm going to make that up easily, right? So again, prioritizing that exit. It's not so important that this corner looks pretty. It's important that it's smooth and clean and has the highest exit velocity that you can possibly get. Same thing's going to happen here. I'm staying off this curb because hitting the curb means one of the rear wheels will probably spin because of that open diff, which means I don't get as much acceleration, which means I lose tenths going down the street. And then exit of this one is another where often I won't get anywhere near this curb because I don't have to. Because the tires are all warmed up, everything's fine. There's no complaining from the front tires, so I'll just leave it alone. However, if I am getting anywhere near it, that's a big danger zone. Both this right and the right before. If you are starting to go wide, just kill the speed. It's because if you go off, it's constantly tightening just a little bit. If you go off back on that downhill, you will remain off for the next 30 seconds. It's pretty brutal. It is very important that you stay on the track. If you do start floating towards the outside, really only use that outside if it's necessary. I'm basically thinking about only coming in around mid-track. Okay, so now we're full throttle. We've done the best we can getting down that hill. Now I'm thinking about minimizing the amount of track I'm using. So I'll often cross deep into that pit lane. I'm trying to keep it very, very tight right, so I cover a little bit less ground. And then important to remember, this straight is not straight. It does kink to the right twice, so never forget that. If you're reading chat, remember that the straight does not go straight. I've had that issue a few times. We're going to trace this right line all the way around. So we'll get back up here a little bit. What I'm looking for here to start setting up for T1 again is we can see the pit exit here. I'm looking at the exit white line. Of course, keep an eye on your relative. Make sure that you're not about to blast someone. I'm basically trying to draw a line such that my left wheels are going to go over the point of the pit exit, and then I'm going to let it start drifting, hopefully wheel straight at this point, and start lining up for my entry into T1. I want to have the car completely straight before we get to that 3 marker, and then we're back to our braking zone for T1. See, easy peasy. Okay, questions?
Can you do a quick hot lap for us?
Sure. Yep. Now that my tires are nice and cool.
Perfect.
All right.
Okay, so again, I'm using that center seam as kind of my guide for how far out I go. Here again, this is all one left corner for me. That first one doesn't exist. I'm already sighting in the late apex for this guy. I'm thinking about coming out to the right here. And this is where I'm thinking about setting up for that double apex right. Hard on it. I haven't lifted. No lift, no lift, no lift. Wheel staying the same. No lift, no lift, no lift, no lift. Keep going through. No lift, no lift. Be brave if you hit the grass. And here, again, we're thinking about using that uphill, so we're only going to come in about mid-track, because it's going to pull the car back in. For this late apex, that's going to force us out to the left, even over that white line. Here again, I'm thinking tight right, because this uphill left is really important. I want to stay tight. And now I'm thinking pretty straight line through here, be brave, know it's going to stick and forth. Make my straight line, use that weird line as my orientation point. Keep it tight on this left so I can get hard on it onto the next two lefts, which I'm treating as one corner. And again, this left, I'm going to compromise because what I really care about is huge launch right here. Full throttle all the way down. Make sure I can get all the way to the right. I don't care about getting to the left here because the wheels weren't complaining. And now I'm going to minimize the amount of track that I'm covering coming down the straight. So again, I'm looking ahead to the point on the end of the pit exit. I'm looking to get straight before the 3 board. For me, I'm braking between the 3 and 2 based on what the tires did through this lap. And now we'll see if we can put a good one in. Okay, so we had a couple of errors there, but hopefully get the idea of how it looks a little bit different at speed when you're actually throwing the weight of the car around. For example, I had to lift before that initial double apex right, after that super hard left, and that again was favorable so that I could stay hard on the throttle through most of that right-hand section. I'd much rather do that than have to push wide for that sharp left. Okay, so again, a little too much. That's fine. We're going to prioritize the exit and make sure I got the car exactly where I wanted it, even though it's not how I wanted to get there. It cost me, a half of a tenth, but not nearly as much as it would have cost me if I allowed it to go off or tried to change where the car's going to end up on exit. And I was able to use where I know that exit is to make a decision about how much I need to correct. It's a much better trip through there. Here's another one where he had to lift a little bit too much on the right, because I was a little bit impatient before I got to throttle. This was a much better example on this lap. I did a better job keeping it tight here without annoying the tires. I think the tires may have been a bit cold. I'm just going to blame it on that. And we avoided the curb this time around, but you see we have a little bit more speed. So if I tried to carry the same line as I did the last lap, the front tires would have complained and scrubbed speed, and I would rather cover a little bit more distance and still have my exit velocity pretty high.
Thanks, Pete.
Mm-hmm.
Looks good. I'm gonna stop recording now. Right, Right, we've
What
got...
are you running your anti-roll bar at on this track?
7.
Okay.
But I will say ARB is very much a personal taste kind of thing. There's no inherent pace advantage or disadvantage to any of the ARB settings. It's really just what you like.
I had mine up around 8, and I was getting a little more snap on the back.
Right, so we've got the session, it's got about 21 minutes left. Shall we just jump and follow the leader? You guys hear me?
Yep,
Yeah,
however you want to go.
Sounds good to me.
I'll stay at the back.
Okay. Oh, I suppose I should cover pit real quick because we didn't talk about that, and that can be important. For pit, I'm coming in, I'm sighting in the tire wall, and just before that... Oh, there's no pit limiter.
Got you again.
Didn't get the flag, It's fine.
Right.
Okay, I'll stay at the back.
Okay, it's Pete behind me. That's Chris ahead of us. Pete, you go ahead. I'll follow you.
All right.
We'll just go slowly and everyone can just catch up.
Yep.
Are we all in the queue?
Think
Yeah.
so.
Okay, I've done that wrong.
Okay. And pick up the pace a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So again, remember, you're probably going to go before the 3 on your cold tires here, the 3 marker, and then later on you can start moving it a little bit further as tires come in and you get more confidence. And as you're adding speed here, just pay attention to still being able to get that late apex and get the car as far out to the right as you can before turning. In here, making sure that the car doesn't go more than about half a track out and that you're going smoothly from left to right with no interval in between. The wheel should never be straight. Okay. Angry tire lap, anyone?
Okay. Do you want to drop back, Pete? And we start taking turns?
Sure thing. I will drop over to the left.
Oh, pay no attention to me. I've got to go surf a black flag.
Clear it for you. Do you want me to clear it?
Oh, I'm fine.
Do a quick.
Come back on, Jerome.
Sorry, Marcus.
Oh, no worries.
No. Rip.
Oopsie.
Ooh.
Too much curb. Sorry.
Uh,
I just spun it up. Too much curb.
oops.
Oh, there we go. There goes Annie.
Okay, got my push to talk enabled on the street, so I can talk to Chad again. But now, so I see that you're doing some MX5, yeah? Suppose I gotta be able to see Chad again, though. Okay, there we go. Issues. Issues.
The king of drift.
You better check, make sure the tofu's okay.
So, have we lost some people?
Yeah, I've lost me. I need to
PCC's not
catch
too
up.
bad, man. I really like the Advanced MX5 can be fun when you get an actual field. You get one of the more popular tracks. Marcus, I'll have you just slide up in front of me on the straight.
Yeah. I'm gonna try at least. But I have already been on the lead, so
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Oh,
No worries, please.
Whoops.
on the curbs you are gone.
Well, that's... our Ian's gone.
Yeah, sorry.
I'll slow up, guys.
Well, okay, so like an advanced as well, because it often will end up being single split, so the lower I rating's not as big of a deal. Also, when you get into Advanced
Daniel Pitts
MX5,
is
oh, hold on.
going slowly, but I'm still spun off.
So also when you get into MX5, you're getting at the people that are willing to commit to like a 30-40 minute MX5 race, which frankly is just sort of a it's a different level of commitment.
Okay. I know. Okay. Charge it now.
Oops.
Sorry, Leafy. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna have to read that in a
And his
minute.
headphones are flat, so she can't hear or speak anymore. So you can say what you want about her now.
As opposed to usually.
So
Yeah.
so well last night. She's not going to hear all the compliments now.
No, good. Big head. She did amazing last night, I have to say. I don't think either of us fell asleep until 4 o'clock this morning. It was amazing. So there's
Is
one
there-
corner I need to sort out.
Is there anyone who hasn't led yet?
Just about to drop off to let someone else lead. Oh, sorry, that's you, Pete. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If there's anyone else who needs a turn.
I led, but I fell off the track, so I handed the reins over mid-lap. So my biggest issue, Pete, is on the downhill section is I can't get the car straight enough to brake for it. That's my...
Okay, so that's without looking. That's more than likely a line issue. We'll take a gander. Okay, I'm gonna pit here and then I'll do some spectating.
Sorry, Chris. Sorry, Chris.
Brake too early for that, that's fine.
Okay. Oh no! It just killed the. It just made the text disappear. I saw that there's a frustration with making mistakes. That's part of it, man. You know, if you look at mistakes as information for what you can do better. So like going around those last couple laps when I was doing the hot laps. So okay, yep, made a couple of mistakes here. I pushed wide on a couple of these corners, so I know I can make an adjustment next time around, and I'll be a little bit quicker. I focus more on the precision with the fundamentals than when you do make a mistake. It's just telling you how you can be faster next lap, as opposed to being, you know, oh no, I made it this huge irrecoverable issue. It's like, okay, I know how to do that better next time. Okay. Okay, Larry, through that section with the double right, try to really focus on having steady right steering input and using the gas and brake to change the attitude of the car.
Okay, I think I messed up the exit there because I can't get the car rotated for that before the bit where I messed up. Oops, too quick.
Yeah, so a common issue for that I had to overcome was trying not to commit to the corner too early.
This is the bit I really struggle with.
Sure. Okay, yep. Yeah, so focus on making that, don't think about that left, that little left kink or corner as a corner, right? Try to really focus what it's going to look like to turn that into a small straight, almost, right? So similar to like, you think about going downhill at the corkscrew at Laguna Seca, right? You're not really turning when you're going downhill, right? If you do it right, you've already turned in, your wheel's straight, and you're just hitting the gas, right? You don't really turn until you get to the bottom of it. Even though it's a chicane, that part of it, your wheel's straight. Same mentality here. So try to get the turning done early, so that your wheel can be pretty close to straight when you're starting to brush the brakes. And if you have to turn in earlier or scrub a little bit more speed, that's fine. Do it so you can get the line perfect. So the line matters way more than the amount of speed you're carrying into that corner.
Okay.
And then also, really think about it as not trying to make that corner perfect, but trying to have the car as far left as you can before you have to tip the car into the right. And it just so happens that there's an apex curb in the way that you have to deal with.
Okay, so as straight as possible.
Yeah, you're going to want to lift. You're going to want to lift earlier, right? Because you can't. You're not able to get the car tipped into the left unless you lift a little bit earlier.
Okay. So that's my issue.
It's just timing. Yeah.
I try not to lift and to use brakes instead, and that's wrong. So I should lift earlier to rotate it. That's what it is.
Yeah. So again, think less about trying to be fast through that left, and really strongly prioritize having a straight exit all the way to the left. Whatever you have to do, even if it feels super slow, give it a try.
Okay.
ANFs, no, I'm not going to be doing 24 hours of spa. I don't have enough time to prepare. Okay, same thing with this double apex left. It's going to feel a little slower to hit the brakes a little bit earlier, but it's going to allow you to get a much stronger exit. It's preferable to compromise some of the entry speed in order to have that favorable exit launch.
Did you see that bit just there? I had to lift on the exit because I was going too wide.
Sure, yeah. So that one's all about getting used to what a really good run feels and looks like for that initial right turn.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Good heads
Sorry,
up.
Sean.
That was my nose.
Was being the operative word. It's ours now.
No, it's in the middle of the track now. Oh, man.
Let's try again. Take this easy.
Yeah, don't worry about speed. Worry about accurate.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay. And
that's
then,
way too quick.
and then just a little bit more patience. Getting the throttle for the right, and then you're getting much closer.
Yeah, it's a long-standing issue for me. My right foot's binary. Oh, that's a session over. Yeah, I set it up wrong again, didn't I?
I did not do Le Mans. We did Nürburgring 24.
No, you set it up for 2 hours.
I want to say we were 3
Yeah,
or
but I
4.
started 10 minutes early, didn't I?
Yep.
I have to go look at our finish position. I kind of forgot. But I try to do Nord's 24 every year.
Right.
It's one of my favorites.
It's fine, I'll figure that one out.
Yeah, it really helps. So when you're doing that initial left, again, just treat it like it's in the way of setting up for a good exit on the second left. So it doesn't matter how fast you get an exit on that first left, because the only thing that matters is the exit of the second, which is totally counterintuitive, but effective.
That's the wrong line, but that's fine. I'll figure that one out later. Just sort this one out first.
You are also getting your right wheels in the dirt a little bit.
I
Setting
did,
up
yeah.
to make it's going to make it sluggish to turn in.
What's a decent lap time here?
It's going to depend on conditions, and it's really heavily track temp dependent. The last season, probably, I'll expect to see 34, 35 with draft and top split. Probably 35s for the fast guys.
So I generally run 36, 37s then. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, a few degrees Celsius will probably be a half second. Because you spend so much time with the tires fully loaded. Okay, so yeah, I look pretty good.
That's better, yeah. If I remember to change gears, it's a good start. I'm getting the feel for it now.
Man, just in time to watch the IMSA race.
Okay, for Hogpin, try to stay a little bit further left before the braking zone
Further
up
left.
here.
Okay. I missed it there. That's fine.
It's
I
gonna
know what
feel
you mean,
weird. It looks really strange. Getting used to it. Okay, a little bit earlier left. You're getting close.
I reckon there'll be quite a few overtakes there.
Yeah, you see
Doing
what
what
I
I'm
mean by because it's decreasing radius. Like if you go
Yeah, if you
off, it
push-
just takes an age to get back.
Yeah. I'll drive till it kicks me out.
I think it's usually about 15 minutes after the session ends is when it boots you.
I think we've
It
got
just
4
stops.
minutes.
It stops logging time.
That's fine. I just want to get a feel for the track.
Okay, so try making sure that you're coming off the gas right about where
Earlier.
the first left curb ends for a visual mark. And
Okay.
get used to how far before or after that curb works for you.
I should be the 5th by now, I think. Quite slow.
Yeah, 4th is good there. I'll even hold 4th in hotter track I was practicing on. I stayed in 4th all the way through that straight because it just wasn't quick enough.
Too much curb there. No, Larry, forgot that tin's there.
I did that a few times as well.
Sorry, Charles. Right, I think I'm going to call it Pete. Thanks for that.
Of course.
So I'll host another just a practice run tomorrow night as well, just to practice the track. I'm not sure I'll do the full 2 hours tomorrow night. I need to make Annie's video, P1 videos. So I'll post in Discord about tomorrow's session.
Okay.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks everyone. I'm gonna go. Annie's headphones are flat, so she won't be able to say goodbye. I'll say bye on her behalf, and I'll speak to you guys in Discord, and I'll catch you guys later.
Fat gloved fingers here.
Alrighty.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care.
Thanks, Pete.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Awesome. Once again, Pete.
I'm glad you find it useful.
Yeah, because I hate that track. I struggle with it. So
This was one of
Now-
my. I absolutely hated it until I didn't, and now I love it, which tends to be a pattern for me.
yeah, I can imagine that because this is just getting the rhythm, finding your line, and then everything goes in one more or less all the time on that track. And
I think we'll maybe do
if
an
you can't
official
find
here.
that, you just struggles everywhere with it.
Yeah, but once you find it, it's got such a nice flow to it once you're locked in and confident.
Yeah, yeah.
Alrighty, I think I might go knock out a quick Zandvoort, and then we've got steaks to grill. So I will catch you guys later.
Yeah,
See you later, Pete,
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, go do one race, and then I've got to get dinner going for the fam. Well, I hope I hit the right button. Let's find out. Did. Okay. I'm getting used to having some hotkeys set on my keyboard. Switching scenes, it's still awkward with a glove. I suppose I need to change my channel title too now. Okay. I don't really know how to do that through OBS nicely without stopping the stream. So I suppose I should stop the stream anyway. So we've got a good break between the race to learn session and this official race. Shoot. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and just stop and restart quick.